Hey guys, it's Ted Bogert. We are back with the Ted Show. Last show of Friday. Very excited to have this young gentleman on. Antonio Lumley is with us with Xtatic Books. We're going to talk about Brook and Brax, the next chapter. I'm excited to hear everything that he does. He's a creative. He's also got a business mind. We're going to talk about all of that and his journey. Welcome, Antonio. How you doing?
Doing good, Ted. How about yourself?
I am doing great. I am very happy it's Friday. I know for a lot of people it doesn't make a difference, but for me, there's something about the mindset of Friday that makes me in a good mood. I don't know why. So I'm very excited. But I've been looking forward to this because you are one of those creatives that I love anybody who can. I love books, but I also love anybody who's creative on the comic side or illustration, story. I just love the whole process of everything. And so when our mutual friend Katrina said, you should have Antonio on the show, I'm like, bring him. I love talent. So we're going to dive into Brook and Brax. We're going to dive into Xtatic Books. But first, we want to learn about Antonio. So tell us a little bit about you, my friend.
All right. Well, my name is Antonio Lumley. I am the owner and author at Xtatic Books. And we just got this company started about a couple of years ago. And so we're just hitting the ground running. So we're looking to do really big things for 2021.
So tell us about your background. Tell us about you. You obviously weren't born, and then you decided I'm going to be a book owner, book company owner. So what was the journey to get to where you're at? Were you always literary? Did you always enjoy books? Tell us a little bit about the journey.
You know, it's kind of funny because I never thought that I would be a owner of a book company, but I've always been into engineering. So I just kind of stumbled upon this. You know, my background is in construction management. So I've been in construction for like 25, 26 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Also done a lot of engineering. I'm currently in the Orlando area. And so I've worked all over I-4 and, 429, those bridges over there. And
That's such an interesting combo. You've got the creative and the technical side in you.
Yeah. But when I was younger, I used to always draw. And I used to think I was good until my 10-year-old son proved that I'm not as good as I thought I was, because he is really, really good.
Isn't that awesome, though?
Yeah, he's really good.
So, but it's one thing to be dabble in it. It's another thing to really take on a book company. I mean, this is big stuff, especially not even during COVID, but with everything being online and people reading in so many different ways now than just the traditional books. What was that like? What was the impetus behind you going, all right, I'm going to do Xtatic. Of course, I have to ask for the name. You're going to have to tell us, share that with us. But I'm going to do this, and I actually want to own the company. I just don't want to be a writer. Right.
I think the whole thing, but to be honest, Ted, I stumbled upon this. I mean, I got to be honest with you. So here's a quick little story. So I was at my brother-in-law's wedding in Mexico, and the bed was so bad that I couldn't sleep in it. And so for some reason, I just thought about it. I said, well, what if I wrote a children's book? I mean, it was such, my son says, the most random thing ever. It's the truth. It's the truth. And so I thought about a name, like, well, what can I write about? And I thought about, what's a catchy name? And I thought about Brook and Brax. It just came out of nowhere, Ted.
Isn't that funny? I mean, that's amazing. But it's
funny. Yeah. I mean, with again, coming from an engineering background, to do this is like way left for me. So
completely, because as somebody who's engineering oriented, right? So you don't usually think of those people. You think of them studying engineering books, but not a Brook and Brax, the next chapter kind of book. They don't seem to really be copacetic. But in your case, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, you know what it was, Ted? I just wanted to do something totally different than what I was used to. I mean, honestly, I was thinking about starting a construction company. That was my original thought. And I don't know how I got to books, but I'm so glad I did.
All right, where's the name come from?
I wanted to choose a name that was different, and something. And I kept thinking about something like electric, and I thought about static, like static electricity, and I came up with Xtatic. So
I love it.
Not a lot of science behind it.
I love the name of it, and I love the way it looks. It looks good. Xtaticbooks.com, of course, is scrolling across the bottom of your screen. Tell us about how Brooks, and we know how the name came to be, but it's one thing to have a name. It's another thing to develop something that has enough of a storyline that it can sustain itself. So tell us a little bit about the process of that.
Yeah, the way I came up with the whole concept was my kids are in martial arts, and I was at the dojo with them one day. I mean, they've been studying martial arts for about going on 7 years now. And my littlest one, he started at 4 years old. And
wow.
Yeah, my other one started at 7. So I was in dojo one time, just like, and I looked at my little one and his best friend, whose name is Evan Rodriguez. He had this bushy hair. And I just thought about him like, man, that'd be pretty cool. I can use those two as kind of my models and my inspiration. And that's exactly what I did.
It's so cool because I think when you create something like that, you have to be committed, right? I mean, it's one thing to go, okay, I'm going to write I love the characters. I kind of have an idea. It's another thing to really develop that. So we had a lot of questions before we went live about people who have ideas that maybe want to pursue, maybe want to figure out how to flesh out, to detail out their storyline and their characters. Can you give them some tips on that? Maybe some things as a book company owner that you might look for or that you have experienced yourself?
Yeah, I think, with me, it's it all depends on who your audience is. So for me to get to the kids, my target is really kids that don't like to read a lot. So I want to engage them. So I thought about, how do I engage them? Well, let's make them look like average kids, right? So my Brook and Brax are diverse. Brooks' parents are Black and Chinese, and Brax's parents are white and Mexican. And then their sensei is Japanese. So I wanted to make sure I had a nice melting pot that all kids can kind of identify with at least one of the characters or a piece of the character or whatever. And then I thought, all right, well, now I have to make it fun to engage the kids. So I added some humor. But during all that, I always want to bring a positive message, for the kids, like, do good in school. That's one of my messages.
That's what the storyline, there's a message to it.
Absolutely.
I forget what they used to call it, but I used to read a book, you're too young, but Highlight magazine there was the moral to the story. There was some lesson that you were supposed to learn from it. So you're trying to give them a lesson, a life lesson, from a platform that actually speaks to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I try to have like a hidden message. If it's not, very overt, it's kind of a covert message in every single chapter.
Tell me about the response. So you have this idea. Again, we're talking about creatives. You have this idea. Just because you have an idea and it sounds wonderful and you put it on paper and it still looks wonderful doesn't mean the audience is receptive to it. So what was that like on that process? Did you have to do a lot of marketing? Did you do any kind of testing it out on your own kids? What was the process like there to make sure that you were on the right path in order to continue to tell your story?
Right. Yeah. Well, I definitely tested out on my kids. I don't think they enjoyed it so much because I'm like, read this chapter. All right, I'm done with this now. Read this. And I'm like, well, how does it sound to you? And then, so they're my biggest critics. So, I mean, luckily they're both in the age group that I'm targeting, are 7-year-olds to about 13-year-olds. So I definitely tested on them first. And then I had a couple of beta readers to test it out. And I wish I knew a little bit more about marketing prior to me putting it out, so I could have had a bigger impact, just when it was released. But so I started from ground zero, and I did this all by a lot of help. But I mean, a lot of the stuff I just looked online.
So what's the next chapter about? Give us a synopsis. What does that mean, Brook?
All right,
Brook and Brax, the next chapter.
So book 1 ended with I can't say how it ended, but Brook and Brax survive. Okay, there were 2 bullies. The bullies' names are Puke and Little Dumps. Okay, again trying to have a little humor in it. they made a gang called the Stank Rebels, okay, that took over their school. So Brook and Brax had to go get it back. But of course, they're undercover ninjas, right? So they can't show their identity. And their backpacks and their belts are actually magical, that they enhance their powers. And that is actually their ninja suit. So when they transform back, they have the cool backpacks and the belts.
Cool.
So that was in book 1. So book 2, I'm going to expand on that, and I'm going to bring more life lessons in. I'm going to have bigger and better, stronger villains in this one. It's going to be crazy. I'm about midway writing it, and I'm really going to develop their sensei Iron Post, and his roots back in Japan. And then he has a daughter named Akari, so I want to get the girls involved. I got to get involved. And let me tell you something. The girls at my kids' dojo, they are badass. They can.
Of course,
those girls are so strong and so, and they can fight. They can fight. And of course, one of our messages, we always promote, hey, we don't want you to start it. But the whole point of knowing how to fight is to know when to fight.
Correct.
And when not to. And only, you use it for defense. But these girls, so I'm getting inspiration from my kids' dojo, which is BBFC.
What do you want to do long term? Do you want to have more authors? Do you want to develop more storylines? What's some of your short-term, long-term goals for Xtatic?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I think after book 2, I'm going to see how things kind of shake out. I dabbled into the comics with them. I have 2 comics out. One is Brook and Brax versus Pandemic. Pandemic is a spinoff of the COVID-19. I was trying to make it a little fun for the kids, so it didn't seem so serious for them.
They need it.
Yeah, and then I have a anti-bullies handbook out. It's only like 5 or 6 pages, but it illustrates the different forms of bullying, cyberbullying, verbal, physical, and kind of how to combat that. So
that's awesome.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So we have that under our book, and we're gonna see after book 2.
You're gonna see.
I'm open to anything.
Are you taking on new authors? If somebody has an idea and wants to do something, is that something that you take on? We had that question before we went live too.
Yeah, that's a good question too. For me, I'm just going to focus on book 2, but I'm definitely open to that. For me to explore. So,
because there's so many creatives out there, but the world of trying to get your idea published is so far removed from the old traditional world, and there are so many platforms and venues and companies. It can be a lot for aspiring authors to try to do all of that. And so to have a local company like you is really kind of a cool thing, because you're here, you're also doing your own thing, you're putting out your own product and content, and yet you're engaging, or you want to engage creatives, which I think is super, super cool. All right. How do people reach you? How do people find Brook and Brax? How do they find Xtatic books? What's the best way if somebody wants to download anything, buy anything, get involved, learn more, or maybe talk to you about their book?
Go to xtaticbooks.com. I have everything there. I have those 2 comics I mentioned. Those are free. They're free downloadable comics. We've got some other illustrations in there. To buy the book, you can go straight to my website. There's a link. You can also go to Amazon. You can also go to Barnes and Nobles, and all my contact info is there. So go to the website. Everything's there.
What do your kids think now? Last question. What do your kids think now that you've got Brook and Brax? They're a little older, and what do they think now about Dad working on this?
I think they're definitely open to it. Before, I think, one thing about me, Ted, I'm a guy that if I start it, I'm going to finish it. I don't like to start projects and so I think they weren't sure at first, but now that they saw the book out, and so now they know Dad's not playing around.
Kids question everything we do. We're embarrassing until we're not, or until they get older and realize we weren't that embarrassing. Right. But I love the fact that your kids were involved. I think it's so important because their perspective is critical for the target audience that you have. The anti-bullying thing is so important. So I want to make sure that when you share the show, and I will too, that we hashtag that and make sure that people know that you have some material and some content for that, because that is cyberbullying, especially, is just such it's out of control. It's completely out of control, and there is just no real good control for it. And so many kids are suffering through it, and most of the parents don't know because it's all on cyber. So Antonio Lumley with Xtatic Books. Big shout out to Katrina from Cosplay Marketing for the intro. Go to xtaticbooks.com. Check out Brook Brax, the next chapter. Reach out to Antonio. He's just as nice. Like, come on, this is an owner of a company. You've got an idea, reach out. I know he'll let you bounce it off him, and maybe it'll turn into something. And then go out and support. We have a local author, a local book company owner. Let's go out and support our small businesses, our local businesses, and help them thrive. So thank you, my friend, for being on. See, it wasn't that painful.
Hey, I appreciate it, Ted. Thank you.
All right, brother. Y'all have a good one. Everybody have a great weekend. Reach out to
me. I want to send you a book.
I would love one.
All right.
Absolutely. All right, guys. We'll see you later. Everybody have a wonderful weekend.